Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. On this channel, we spend our time looking at fantasy of all sorts, from movies to video games to books, and taking the characters within and applying them to the tabletop game Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. Today, though, we're going to be looking at a core mechanic of D&D itself, one of the most underrated classes in the whole game, the Ranger. The Ranger was a class that was not very well received when it was first published in the player's handbook, largely due to the fact that its subclasses were kinda broken in the bad way. They didn't work very well. But how about the class itself, with its core features? How does that work? And does it deserve the bad reputation that it's got? Let's have a look and see what we can find. Now, the Ranger begins the game with a hit dice of D10. D10 is the same as the Paladin and the Fighter. It makes the Ranger actually pretty tough. They get a decent amount of hit points, second only to the Barbarian, which makes them pretty hardy. I give this a 9 out of 10. Nothing to complain about there. As far as armor goes, they're proficient in light armor, medium armor, and with shields, meaning that other than wearing heavy armor, the Ranger can wear pretty much anything they want. Not much to complain about here either. They get a 9 out of 10 in that regard. And it's even better when you look at their weapon proficiencies. They're proficient with all weapons, simple and martial, ranged and melee. They can do it all. 10 out of 10 on their weapons. I think a lot of folks miss this fact, that a Ranger, with the exception of heavy armor, has the same weapons, armor, and hit dice as the Paladin and the Fighter. These guys work just fine on the front lines, and are pretty tough. Tools, nothing special, which surprises me, honestly. I would have thought that some sort of survivalist thing would be ideal here, but 5 out of 10, no buff for the Ranger when it comes to tools. Saving throws, strength and dex. This gives them one of the most useful ones, dexterity. That dodges a lot of magic and a lot of other things. Strength, not so much. I give that a 10 out of 10 for dex and a 7 out of 10 for the strength saving throw proficiency. They actually get a little more skills than most. They get 3 skills out of a total list of 8. I give that a 9 out of 10 and an 8 out of 10 for the amount and the variety. Not bad. Then comes their low-level abilities. Favored Enemy. You get to choose a couple of different races of creature, types of creature, and then you become better at tracking them and searching for them and conversing with them if they're humanoid. And unfortunately, this skill doesn't buff you in combat. It just buffs you in location and knowledge about said creature. So this skill falls a little flat. I mean, it's not useless. It's nice for tracking purposes and, for knowledge, but it doesn't do anything for combat. So 6 out of 10. Next up is the Natural Explorer perk, which allows you to choose a biome, so forest, grassland, desert, underdark, whatever biome you want, and then you become better at surviving in that biome, navigating, finding resources, leaving trails or tracks or not, being stealthy in it, that sort of thing. But once again, this is very situational. This is the sort of thing that comes up when you need to travel stealthily, or when you don't have rations for some reason. Great in a survivalist campaign, perhaps, but not in a normal D&D campaign. Again, it's not useless, but it just won't come up very much. 6 out of 10. Next, the Ranger gets their fighting style, and fighting styles are never bad. You get to choose from archery, one-handed weapons, dual wielding, as well as the defensive AC booster, which is nice. Most Rangers that I've seen will take archery because they're dex-based class, but you can take the other types if you want to be a sword-wielding Ranger or a defensive Ranger. Not bad, 8 out of 10. And another thing that people often forget about the Rangers is that they are spellcasters. Turns out they have a lot of nature magic, not exactly druid level, but definitely stuff that comes in handy. They're half-casters, wisdom-based, and magic improves pretty much everything. You don't have to use it, but why wouldn't you? It's powerful, and it buffs you up, and it's a 9 out of 10 from me. Spellcasting's never bad. Next up is Primeval Awareness. This gives you the ability to detect creatures that are close to you. It's kind of limited because it's only a few times per day sort of thing, and it only works for a short period of time. It's not great for tracking. It's more for, like, avoiding ambushes if you feel like there's somebody hiding or stalking you. It's just kind of limited in its use. It's a 6 out of 10, honestly. It could be a lot better. Then there's Extra Attack. What can I say? This is a martial-based class who's skilled in all weapons, so Extra Attack makes sense. You get to make one extra attack, and only the fighter really gets a better deal than this, so 9 out of 10 for this particular power. Then comes the Landstride power. Landstride allows you to move through difficult terrain easier. So you don't have to worry about getting bogged down in difficult terrain when they're in combat or when you're moving. And spells like Ensnare that use natural elements to try to trap you, you have advantage against. So it's pretty hard for you to get stuck in nature. Not terrible. Definitely comes up a little bit when you're in the wild and you need to move very, very smoothly. So 7 out of 10. The Hide in Plain Sight power. This is one of the weird ones, where you can spend a minute creating a disguise for yourself that allows you to get a +10 bonus to your stealth checks. This is actually shown in the Hunger Games movie, when the character PETA he paints himself so he looks like the background. The problem is that while it's great to hide in plain sight like that, it doesn't really do much because it doesn't let you move. If you move, it doesn't give you the bonus. So I'm not exactly sure what this is for. Like, unless you're trying to, like, hide in a place you know your enemies are going to be passing and you don't want to just create cover for yourself, maybe, but I really can't see when this is going to come up. So 5 out of 10. Maybe in a creative sense it could work and it could allow you to get closer in very specific situations, but I just can't see it. Then there's the Vanish Power, which is a little more helpful. It allows you to hide as a bonus action. So you can hide easier. This is much more useful than Hide in Plain Sight, because the hide action can really buff your stealth just because you can find some cover. So a little bit better. 7 out of 10 for sure. Then the Feral Senses power. Now this is actually a good one. The Feral Senses power allows you to detect the presence of unseen enemies, invisible enemies, and gives you effectively 30-foot blind sight, to the point where you can detect invisible or unseen enemies. As long as you're not deafened or blinded, you can just tell where invisible creatures are. And you don't get disadvantage when you fight them. So 9 out of 10. Pretty good power, just comes on a little late. And then finally, Foe Slayer. This is the moment that the Ranger was really waiting for, because they get to add their Wisdom modifier to damage done to their favored enemy. So finally, that favored enemy, they get a damage buff against. But guess when this power comes online? It comes online at level 20. It's their capstone feature. It's nice. I give the power an 8 out of 10 because you're getting extra damage against your favorite enemy. That's what the Ranger wanted. Why so late? Why is this not, like, level 3 instead of level 20? By that point, who cares about adding 5 points from your Wisdom modifier to 1 attack per turn? It's just unfortunate that this happens so late. And that's it. That's the Ranger's powers. Unfortunately, while they do have some cool abilities and plenty of proficiency with armor, weapons, and combat, so many people wanted more from them. More skills in, sneak attack, perhaps. More skills in evasion or stealth. Like, really, this was the opportunity to create a wild rogue or a wild fighter. But in the end, we just kind of get the hand-me-downs. After crunching the numbers, you actually get an 8 out of 10 for this class, but it's a very low 8 out of 10. Because other than their ability to fight pretty well, most of their special powers just don't do much, and that's a real shame. The Ranger, unfortunately as presented in the player's handbook, is not great. It's not, though, terrible, but it's definitely not great, because it just doesn't deliver on what we want it to do. You basically are just a slightly reduced fighter with a little bit of magic that's got some nature skills, and that's just not enough to make the Ranger worth playing in this form. Unfortunately, the subclasses in the Player's Handbook didn't really help either. Very lackluster, and I'll discuss those in other videos. But 8 out of 10 for the Ranger, definitely one of the weaker classes. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe down below, and keep your eyes open for the rest of the classes coming up in a video very soon. Have a good one, my friends.